everybody, and welcome to Experience This, show number 41. We've got a great one here today, all about how experiences and short-term rentals are working together or not, and what Airbnb has been up to over the last week or two. It's getting a lot of news. So I want to introduce my co-host, Lori Timoney from Go City, and Christian Watts from Magpie. You guys want to introduce anything here today?
Sure. Just to say hello, everyone. Really interested in the conversation we're about to have. What is Airbnb up to? That's the big question, big elephant in the room lately. So looking forward to the discussion.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to this one. There's been 2 or 3 stories in the last couple of weeks, right? So yeah, let's dig into it.
Yeah, and the topic took a turn or two. So before we dig in real far, Maddie, tell us about yourself and Mount and why you're here with us today.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name's Maddie Rifkin. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Mount. And essentially, we're a 3-sided marketplace. So we connect what you guys know as an Airbnb host, a short-term rental host, into local experience operators, and then allow those hosts to offer these experiences to their guests. So we connect all 3 parties involved and really target that in-destination traveler.
How old were you when you got your first patent?
Yeah, I did start my company when I was 12 years old, so it's been a journey so far.
Just had to throw that in there. And Mitra Sorels from FocusWire. Hello, tell us about yourself, and I think we all know about FocusWire.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. It's wonderful to have this invitation to join you guys. And I think we're gonna have a great discussion. Yeah, so, at FocusWire, we are covering the global travel industry, sort of at what we say is at the intersection of technology, and certainly really focused in on a lot of the online first brands. And so Airbnb and Vrbo and others in the short-term rental space are right up there on our radar.
So tell us about your view of Airbnb experiences over the last week or two, what you've seen and some thoughts that you have on that.
Yeah, it's so much has happened in the last few weeks, as Christian, I think, said. I was out in LA. They had this big, as you may know, every May and November, they do a release. They call it, I think it's their spring release and their fall release. And for the last several years, those have all been done as kind of online virtual, they send us a news release, they set us up for interviews, and that's it. But for this, back in, I think, March, they contacted me and said, we're doing a big event in Los Angeles. Can you come out? So, of course, let's see what they have. And the high level takeaway from that is, first of all, they are masterful at marketing, right? They are masterful at getting attention for themselves. They also clearly have a lot of money to invest in it, because this event, there were, I think, 150 to 200 or so journalists and influencers from all over the world. And this was the event, I'm certain probably everyone watching and listening saw something about the Icons release and that picture of the Up House and the other experiences. So that was the big kind of reason for that event, was to unveil that, as well as some tools related to group trip planning. And I would love to, we can talk about that more. I have some thoughts on kind of what the underlying strategy is there of what they're doing.
Let's talk about the group trip planning and the underlying strategy. I think that is the really interesting part. It's maybe hasn't been made really super public yet.
Yeah, well, so, there was a combination of 2 events. So this was the event in Los Angeles around May 1st with the unveiling of all of their spring release updates. And then the very next week was their Q1 2024 financial earnings report, where I listened in with their call with analysts. And so the combination of the 2 of those experiences really has me convinced, and really I heard Brian Chesky say it directly, this is all about them getting more and richer profiles about people all over the world. And that's ultimately because they want to be able to drive AI personalization for everyone. So if you think about the Icons launch, there's the Up House, there's a Marvel House, there's a stay at the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. For all of these, it's sort of like a lottery process in order for you to have the opportunity to do the experience. And Bruce, I think you said you went on and looked at some of those. It's a very detailed kind of application process that you have to go through to apply for one of these. So if you don't already have an Airbnb profile, you have to create one. Even if you do already have one, you have to answer much more detailed questions. I think, as I recall, there was a list of questions and you had to answer, I think, at least 2 from the list. And it was things like, where do you work? Do you have any pets? What type of music do you like? You know, all of those things. So set that aside for a minute. The other big part of their spring release was all these updated tools for group trip planning. And that's a really interesting strategy because they don't, you know, more and more often people are booking an Airbnb maybe for a group of 3 or 4 or 5 people. And they said, we want to have a point of sale for everyone in that reservation, not just the person that goes on Airbnb and makes the booking. They want to have a connection to everyone that's going to be staying in that house. So what did they do? They created these group trip planning tools. So now if the 5 of us are going on a trip together and I make the booking, I create a group kind of chat in the app, and then all of us can message with the host, and all of us can see the check-in information. And those are very useful things, of course, but it's also about making sure that all 4 of you also have a profile in Airbnb. So that's really, and so then the week after the launch of these products was the earnings call, as I said, and Brian Chesky very much talked about that they see the profile, the words he used, and I'm just going to look at my notes here and make sure I say this right. He said the profile will be the center of the Airbnb solar system. And around that will be all the products and services that they want to be able to sell and offer. And accommodations are just going to be one part of the planets in that solar system. And
all right, let's take a breath. Let's take a breath there.
Yeah,
it's a lot. You're speaking Christian's language when we talk about using personalization.
Yes.
And to go with AI. We'd love to hear from Christian and Lori, get your feedback on that. And then we'll head over to you, Maddie, for some thoughts about how this impacts the industry overall. So what do you think, Christian? Have you filled out a profile yet?
You know, I went to start and then I got distracted because my focus is 4 seconds long, and I knew I was on. No, I couldn't find one that wasn't already sold out that I wanted to actually apply for. So that was the problem. But he also did a podcast last couple of days, Chesky, and yeah, it's a story now. And he mentioned on the podcast the big announcement is next year. I don't know if he said that on the call, Mitra, but he said a lot of things a year ago with AI as well. And everything to me points to AI agent. So he wants to be your travel AI agent, and Airbnb will be the place you'll start to do all your trips, and it'll be your personal travel agent. The interesting thing was, and I know you were and Laurie and Mitra both at Expedia conference last week, but it's really similar to the Expedia release, right? With Romy. So that does the group messaging. And I didn't get it when you announced it on stage, but I went to talk to them afterwards. And they said, listen, with introducing Romy, the AI agent, to your group chats on WhatsApp or Messenger or text, we're listening to all of your chats. So Johnny over here wants to eat some Chinese food, and Susan wants to have Italian food, and so wants to stay by the beach, and they listen. And the idea is the AI agent jumps in to help when it's time. But obviously they're learning everything about your profile along the way. And we're thinking of it as a WhatsApp group, which we're used to doing, right? We're just chatting with friends. So we talk quite openly.
Yeah,
so I think it's the
forget
same
Romy's
thing.
even there, you're gonna just forget it's there. I actually did use Romy this weekend to try to, I brought my sisters in on the conversation, and Romy worked for about a second, like one question, and then just stopped working. And I thought, okay, it's in beta. I know it's in beta. But yeah,
So
I mean,
have you filled out a profile on Airbnb?
I have not filled out a profile. Now, first of all, I am somebody that, and you almost don't even know if you should admit this, on air, but I've definitely have probably a good solid profile on Airbnb. I think Airbnb at this point knows where I like to travel, what I like, how many people travel with me, what I like, type of homes I like to stay in, etc. I haven't filled out an actual profile, Bruce, but I agree. I mean, Mitra, 100%. I think that number one, the Airbnb is just a master at this, just here's our brand, we're unbelievable, we've got something coming, pay attention. That's
Yeah.
all that Icons is in my mind. And then in terms of like looking at, and I know we haven't touched on this yet, but I'm sure we will, the fact that they're starting to offload experiences. I think they're just cleaning house in that regard, because they're gonna do it all over again, and they're gonna do something obviously much bigger and focused on the whole personalization thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they have a good profile on you because you travel with Airbnb a lot and they know where you like to stay and how you like to stay. But they're going a lot deeper, like Mitra said. I mean, they're asking, what kind of music do you like? Do you have pets? What kind of sports do you like? I mean, they ask so many questions if you're willing to go through and feed that info to them. And I was, because I wanted to see what they were going to come back with, and nothing yet, but it'll be here.
Sorry, I was just going to say, it almost makes me wonder if they started with that idea of, like, I can picture people around a table. How can we get people to give us more information and create a richer profile? And someone said, what if we create these crazy experiences that people would want to apply for? You know what I mean?
Give us a reason to want to do that. And
yeah,
for sure.
Well, they might have seen it too when they launched like the Barbie house experience well before Icons, and saw how popular that stay was. Like, they did it with one other property too. Kind of tested Icons before they launched it.
Right.
Yeah, he referenced that was a learning moment for them. The Barbie house last summer for sure kind of was an aha kind of thing. So
I think the Icons thing too, to me, I thought a little bit about the fact that it almost rides a little bit on the coattails of the whole set jetting concept, right? Like following your favorite series, or so everybody that loves White Lotus, they're off to Italy or whatever, and it almost feels a little bit like that to me, but in a different, kind of bringing in the celebrity aspect and yeah.
But is that scalable? Which is a big
Oh
question.
no, I don't think he has any intention of making Icons like it's not gonna. This is just
a PR play. So what's your perspective, Maddie? So you are very involved with and as you said, not Airbnb hosts, but short-term rental hosts, right? And working with them and creating a unique distribution platform for experience operators. What do you think about what Airbnb is doing? Do you think it maybe is opening up opportunities for, companies like Mount and others who, are trying to fill the gaps here?
Yeah, I mean, I would say yes and no. It's interesting because I've been in the short-term rental industry now for about 3 years, and they are very adamant. I got in that industry and started, calling it the Airbnb industry, and people shut me down very quickly because these hosts don't want to be associated with Airbnb. They're actively trying to figure out how to get away from it. And so, it's interesting because there's a problem there too, and that these hosts want to work with local businesses. They've been trying to. Airbnb Experiences actually didn't let them, because as a host on Airbnb, you can't recommend Airbnb Experiences and get anything from it. You could just give someone a URL, but there's really no incentive to do that. They didn't tie their platforms together, which is kind of weird. But I do think it opens the door up for other companies like Mount and others out there, because you have these in-destination travelers. The host knows who they are. They need to provide this amazing experience. They can't operate like a hotel and have like a spa or a restaurant. And so, yeah, people are wanting to travel local is what I see happening. And they're using an Airbnb type property to do that.
Yeah. So, I mean, what do you all think? I mean, is Airbnb lodging opening up experiences to other companies like Mount and others to come in and fill the gap now?
Well, there is a need for sure, Bruce. I mean, I think that a lot of people really liked Airbnb Experiences. I think they like the idea of it. When I first saw it, I thought, oh, this is pretty cool. This is but definitely more curated, more local. So I think there's a definite need for it from my point of view. And I love what you're doing, Maddie. I took a look at your website and I think it's a really cool concept. I'm interested to know a little bit more about how you're running your tech and how you're running, when it comes to your concierges, how do you scale that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And so really what we do, and this is why I've been in the short-term rental industry for so long, building Mount as a brand, is it's very simple process. You as an Airbnb host, VRBO host, wherever you list your property, can sign up on Mount, and you put in your market. And so let's say you're in Denver, for example, we'll pull all of the relevant experiences we already have there, recommended from other hosts. If you don't see what you want, you can actually recommend other local businesses to get them on the platform. If you're in a market where we are not, you do the same thing, recommend local businesses, they come online. And so, yeah, very simple process, can get it going. The way we find hosts, though, it's very interesting. We have a very strong top of funnel on social media. So we have 170,000 followers on TikTok, and then Instagram is a whole nother beast. But that's where we find them, because we found there's an intersection between traveler and host, in that they're one and the same. You are simply a host with 1 to 5 properties because you want to use that income to travel. So you rent your house or wherever you're staying, short-term rental it, and now you're using that income to go travel to other people's properties. So they find us on TikTok because we're a travel account, but turns out they're also a host. So they get the ecosystem pretty well.
And do you come across, I know you obviously you can't market directly through Airbnb, but do they try and block you? Are they actively trying to work against people signing up? I mean, I'm actually sitting in our Airbnb in New York. We call ours an Airbnb. We don't call it a rental because most people do, but I totally get it. But they try and keep it all on platform, right? Which they should, and that's a sensible thing. But are they actively out there trying to block you from reaching out to their hosts?
No, and we actually, because we have such a strong traveler community, actively tell our travelers, like, hey, if you're staying at an Airbnb property, like, let your host know we exist and they should be using us, because it makes your stay better. So I haven't seen Airbnb go against us. I'd say there's probably some people out there that are actively supporting it, just because if your host is happy and not actively rooting against Airbnb itself as a brand, they're going to stay on Airbnb's platform. So, I mean, it's a win-win for them. Too, just as a retention tool, because they churn through a lot of hosts. Now, I don't know if that's something they mentioned on the earnings call, but that is a metric they keep track of.
Have you heard about that, Mitra? About churn, host churn?
No. Again, they're very masterful at what they do and don't share, So, what's funny though, that I think I've heard both Maddie and Christian kind of using the term, like, do you call it an Airbnb? Do you say, I'm going to short-term rental it, I think was what Maddie said. And it's funny because I've heard Brian Chesky himself say that in a way, they feel like it has hampered them, that Airbnb is a noun and a verb, and it's used in all of these very kind of generic ways to mean a rental property, because they really want to expand beyond that. And so they feel like, to a certain extent, because of what's happened just with the word Airbnb, that has held them back a little bit. So the whole concept, you'll hear him regularly use the phrase beyond the core, expanding beyond the core. And that's really what their roadmap is for the future.
So can we talk about what's happened so far in experiences? Because in 2020, that was the year of experiences, right? That's what Chesky said. Obviously, COVID happened, and rightfully, I think they went a different direction. What they did last week, and I'm not sure how many people, Mitra, maybe you've got a number on this, but they sent masses of emails to experience operators. Yeah. And I think it was 5-star operators. It was really good. And they said, we're canceling, we're stopping all future bookings, and we're canceling everything from June 20th onwards, which I've never heard anything like that. I mean, OTAs turn products off, but for them to blanket cancel future bookings, for me, it's just completely wrong. And I love Airbnb, but this is the worst thing I've seen them do. So I don't know if we have numbers on that, but why have they turned against the old style of experiences? Or is it, like Laurie said, are they just cleaning up, but in the wrong way?
It's interesting because I don't know how well publicized it is, but they do this very regularly on the host side as well. So they'll take your listing down for no reasons, even if it has bookings. They'll get rid of all of your reviews without telling you. It's a reason why they have such a high host churn. So they're doing it on both sides. I think it was a bit more publicized on the experience side. But yeah, they have a hard time with retention because of that. And I think their brand is really strong on the traveler side, but the whole supply side of their marketplace, which is stays and experiences, they are not kind to the supply side of their marketplace.
So how does that work for you, Matt? If you working with experiences and hosts, and you're the platform in the middle, instead of Airbnb being the platform in the middle, when these experiences get kicked off of Airbnb, does that impact you in any way?
No, we typically try and meet the experience operator where they already are. So if they already use a res tech, we can do that. We're working on our next solution, which would meet them if they don't have a res tech. That's been the harder nut to crack. But it's not too hard for us. I mean, I would say that a lot of experience operators on Airbnb, and you guys would know better than me, but a lot of them seem like independent operators that don't use either a res tech or any other piece of software.
What's interesting is it almost seems like, they're really good at the whole user experience, right? On their website. And, depending upon what kind of host you have, it can be a really wonderful experience. But you're saying that they're really not good on the supply side, whether it be with experiences or host. And it's interesting because one of the comments that's been made in some of these chats that have come out recently is the idea that they really are, they're just not reliable when a lot of people have complained about not getting paid at the right time or just being, unreliable. And I'm just, it's interesting to know this, because how are they going to scale and grow if they don't actually start improving the relationships and also the quality control, right? That's one of the comments I saw quite a bit, was there was no real training for the host when it came to experiences. And there wasn't really any quality control either. So you would have a guide, for instance, that maybe wasn't even that good, but they were on the platform regardless. So interesting.
Yeah.
It's the same as
Imagine how
OTAs.
they're gonna- What?
It's the same as OTAs. It's the same as everyone whining about OTAs and the commission. I'm on all these Airbnb Facebook groups, and they sit there and they whine about the commission. It's exactly the same. And
Yeah.
but for every one of the whingers, there's 100 that are delighted with Airbnb, and it's 90% of most of their business, I think. So I think it's just like a tour operators Facebook group where people are shout loud and people get upset. Everyone got upset when they canceled the bookings during COVID, right? There was no right way to do that. Airbnb decided just to cancel everything and refund everyone. It was the right thing by the traveler, but the wrong thing by the host. And, we can all make a judgment on that, but there's no right and wrong.
Well, this is kind of a big deal though, right? I mean, for them to just all of a sudden cancel everybody's experience, even if you had a 5-star experience, and basically giving the same reason to every single supplier, like, oh, you just didn't meet our criteria. I mean, that's interesting to consider what the message said. That was
Right.
just
Oh, and you had
Right.
30 days to appeal.
Right.
Right.
The number, to answer Christian's question, the number that I've heard is about 5,000 that got that email.
5,000 operators.
Experience operators.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, you know what? Actually, now that you say that, I'm not sure if that's 5,000 operators or 5,000 experiences that, one person could have multiple. But I mean, I will say just another takeaway as I think about that event in Los Angeles, it's really clear to me that one of their top of their to-do list is global brand awareness. So I think much farther down their list is keeping tour operators and hosts happy, to be honest. You know what I mean? Like they had journalists and influencers from all over the world there, and Brian Chesky was doing one-on-one interviews with journalists from India and China, and they're really looking to grow brand awareness internationally. And I think they're really trying to attract kind of the younger generations. That's why, so many of these icons experiences kind of had some of that element to it. So
Mitra, do you have an indication of other products then that they want to put in their solar system, as you called it? Because experiences isn't it. They've tried and tried, and they've tried a lot of different things. And, maybe there's something left, but it seems like that's going down. What do they want in their solar system?
First of all, I think experiences will still exist. I think it's just going to be done. They're kind of reinventing it. And it's a little bit yet to be seen what that will look like. I think he was asked by one of the Wall Street analysts on the call, the question that all of us have said, like, come on, these icons things, it's not really a revenue driver. It's a very finite group of people. But he framed it, I think the example he used was, it's like a Formula One car, and very few people are going to get to drive that Formula One car, but it generates buzz and excitement, and it gets people thinking about what might be. So I think experiences will still exist. I think this email Friday and some of that is just like step one in their journey of reinventing that. But I think they're potentially just going to be like a big global OTA. They're looking to grow internationally, and they're looking to add a lot of products. I think there could be car rentals, there could be flights, there could be package tours, all kinds of things.
You think they'll just end up, I mean, everyone's been talking about this for years. Are they going to end up selling the Eiffel Tower? You think they'll end up selling a Viator type suite of products?
I don't know. I mean,
who's got the answer to that?
Well, I think that's where I thought Mitra was going, but then I changed it. I think what you're saying is right now we have two global OTAs, right? Expedia, Booking, and you're saying Airbnb might go into that route and be the third global OTA. And guess what? With their brand, they don't need to give all their profit away to Google or whatever AI search is going to happen. Like, isn't that what you're kind of coming?
Yeah. I mean, again, it's this comment. I'm looking at it here in my notes. The profile will be the center of the solar system of Airbnb, and the home will be one of many categories orbiting the profile.
And he did speak to customer loyalty as well, like considering a loyalty program is something that he's interested in, and that would make a lot of sense. But it's interesting to think about, like when I think of Airbnb, I sort of think out of the box a little bit. And especially as it relates to experiences, that's exactly what they sold. But then that's really hard to scale. Obviously, most of these experience operators weren't connected to any tech at all. How much you're going to be able to sell of something like that? And then, getting into some of the standardized stuff. I mean, he's going to have some kind of an API to just pull in regular supply, like attractions and things like that people want. But it'll be interesting to see what he develops that still remains unique to some degree.
Patty, what
That's
do you
why I
think
don't-
in terms of experiences? Because for a second we were switching out, and the solar system is more about the profile and all travel. You just brought it back, Lori, to experiences. They do own a piece of tickets, whatever that's worth. They spend $60 million on that. Maddie, what do you think just on the experiences side? Since that's where you're at.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think Brian is all about keeping things hyper local. I mean, it's the reason why he pushed so hard against not selling the classic attractions and things like that, is they just really don't go with the Airbnb brand. And I know he's like very big into that. So it'll be really interesting, especially when you think about where majority of Airbnb properties are. They're not in major cities. Like New York just banned all short-term rental properties. They're in secondary and tertiary markets where actually a lot of tour operators are, but they're not online. So I think that might've been one of his real issues when he started Airbnb Experiences, is he expected everyone to just come on the platform, be able to list, create these amazing experiences. And then he realized they're very individual mom and pop businesses that run on their own hours and their own time, and they'll open their shop when they feel like it. They're not going to post their hours online. And that's a really hard thing to match when you have a short-term rental. So, that could have been one of the big issues that I don't know if he's figured out how to solve.
Yeah, I was always annoyed at Arrival, not with Arrival, Bruce, but with the Airbnb interviews, that they're not going into the standard experiences. Then I read there's an excellent book called The Upstarts, and it tracks Airbnb and Uber at the same time. They were both founded at the same time, right? And they grew at the same pace. Really good book because it goes backwards and forwards between the two companies, and they're almost the same company, right? Just in a different vertical, and they're almost the same size today. And that's when I understood what Maddie just said about the community. He still talks about, he wants to be renting out rooms in houses, not whole houses. That's what he likes. That's what he loves. And I think the icon thing makes no sense because of that. So I'm not sure where that comes back around, but I think that is his thing. He still believes in this community. So to me, it's either going to keep doing experiences, but more of what they've already done. I don't understand where they go with it. More like Fever type stuff, more of the local cool sort of single unique nights out, and more. I don't know. I can
Yeah.
see how Icons could turn into that bit more of the small concert kind of thing, but not Eiffel Tower. I don't think.
Yeah. Well, at the very least, their next big update will be in November if they stick to the schedule they've had for the last 3 or 4 years. So maybe we'll learn more about what's happening with experiences at that point, if not before.
I think one thing he's got to think about too is just the growing resentment of, neighbors kind of saying, hey, I don't want Airbnb in my neighborhood, in my town, in my city. There's a lot of people out there that really don't want that to happen. I mean, I know the town that I live in, the next town over is a port city, and they've banned Airbnbs. And I think that's happening in a lot of places, which is interesting to think that he continues to talk about the fact that he wants to rent out, kind of a room in his house sort of thing, because that's apparently what you're supposed to be doing, right? In a lot of these places, you have to give the illusion that you're home and it's your home. I don't know if you've been in that situation in an Airbnb, but it's kind of like, well, my sister is home and he's on the other side of the, house. But then you never see the sister. She's never there because the house is empty, and this is how they get around.
Oh, I've checked into a few condos where the directions are, you can get the keys this way. Don't tell the front doorman that you're a guest. Just go up to the unit, blah, blah, blah. And you mentioned Uber and Airbnb, both companies, they didn't care about the rules, right? Then, what we're seeing is Airbnb isn't caring about the tour operators. Uber didn't care about the taxi drivers. I mean, there's a lot of just like, screw it. We're just going to do whatever we need to do to grow and get huge and go public and be successful. And are we still seeing more of the same? It always seemed like Airbnb and Uber with the new ownership or leadership, I should say, excuse me. We're starting to see their softer, gentler side, but I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, I don't think you could compare this whole not comparing about the rules. I mean, I get that, and there was a degree of that, but also you're trying to work with cities, and cities are a nightmare to work with. What are you supposed to do? Sit and wait for a city to come up with some legislation so you can do an Uber? So they went around the rules from the cities because the cities, they're backwards, and they didn't care about the taxis because they were competing with taxis. I don't think they don't care about their own drivers or their own hosts. I get that there's a lot of hosts that churn and are unhappy, but I don't think they don't care about their hosts.
Yeah.
I would say they do and they don't. They're a bit big to care enough. Like there's a lot of tech glitches, or I don't know what you want to call it, where a guest actually, this is a big TikTok hack. It's not real, but they teach you, what to say on Airbnb's chat to get your trip refunded. And the chat is a bot or someone that doesn't check, and you get your trip refunded. And the host is like, excuse me, none of this happened. This is not real. They can appeal it and it goes into the wasteland. And so the host is left feeling totally unheard and gypped a little because the guest just completely lied, and the Airbnb took that guest side. And so that's where the unhappiness is coming from, is that they tell you can appeal it. Same with the tour operators. You can do that. It goes, to the wasteland. No one actually looks at it. And there's just no way to get through. It's kind of like us being on a customer service line and connecting to someone far across the other side of the world that doesn't really, get the actual problem that's going on. So I'd say there's a lot of that happening as well, which leads to the host not being very happy.
So different angle, if I may, Bruce, can I jump in with the AI angle now?
Of course, I was waiting.
Can they be? So everyone wants to be your agent, right? That's clear. OpenAI wants to be your agent, your go-to. They're my agent, or they're my agent right now, along with Gemini and a few others. But can Airbnb be your single travel agent. Expedia wants to be that as well. So do you think in a year or two, when you want to book a trip, first thing you'll do is pick up your phone and say, hey, whatever your agent's called, we're looking at this. Do you think are they strong enough to be that brand, or are we just going to have different OTA brands, each with an agent?
I would,
I think,
oh, go
sorry.
ahead.
I was just going to say, I think they obviously need to build out their product ecosystem much bigger to be that, right? And so I don't know that that's going to be in another year or two, but I do think that's where they're moving, and they had that acquisition of Game Planner AI last fall. I think that's key to what they're building.
That was a concierge service. What was the Game Planner? I forgot what that was.
I should be more up on that. I'd have to go back and look it up. It was a company that was kind of under the radar and you didn't really hear much about it. Then all of a sudden Airbnb was buying them. But I think they are fundamental to the work that they're doing internally right now with AI.
Yeah.
What are you going to say, Maddie?
Yeah, I was just going to add a question to your question, which is, do you think the newer generations really are going to be booking that way, where they, type in like an idea into the AI bot or whatever, and it comes back with something? Like, the way I see it, and maybe Airbnb is leading into this, is that it all starts with video content and like actual people that have been doing it. You're scrolling, you have your dream list, see something really cool and you add it to your bucket list, and that's kind of how your search starts. And then you go from there.
No, I agree with that at the top of the funnel, but I think just like Meta on Instagram now, right? I could be watching a video about Bali, and I can just hit the Meta button and I could say, book me a hotel to this hotel that I just watched on the video. So I think, top of the funnel, videos there, but you still got to make the transaction somehow. And I think that needs to be your agent. Or it doesn't need to be your agent. I think
I don't think Airbnb, like Mitra said, they don't have the product. So unless they're going to start spending a ton of cash, which they have a ton of cash on buying the right product. I mean, how are they right now? They bought Hotel Tonight 5 years ago, right? That's their hotel product. So how are they going to supplement that?
Plug in an API in about 10 minutes. You have an Expedia API.
They could. So they could build it that way and be a third party through a third party.
I don't think they do that. That might go against all their branding rules.
There's other APIs, right? They could use they could get flights and.
But you think they're going to guys and not build their own or buy their own product? And it really would be a buy versus build, probably. But this will be the end of the show. We'll do a quick, what's Airbnb going to look like in 3 years? But what else do you want to talk about? I'd like to understand the short-term vacation market, the vacation rental market, and experiences. Can it be a clear distribution platform for our industry where, I think we need something new. The operators are looking for something new and different. And, just going back to what Mount's all about, Maddie, is it scalable?
I mean, the way I see it, yes. I'd say, and this is what I tell our investors, like, the reason no one has done it before is because when you stare right at it, you see three very dispersed groups that none of them tied together. You have travelers who are all individuals. You have local businesses who, again, are all individuals. Nothing really ties them together. And same for the short-term rentals. Like, they all individually operate. So it's like, how do you aggregate all three of those markets? And then you dive in there and you're actually like, okay, they all know each other, and that's how you're going to do it. And that's really what we've built. And so we see specifically on Mount, when a Airbnb host onboards and comes onto our platform, they will bring us 7 new suppliers in their market. On average, some bring us a lot more. And then it goes around. So those suppliers bring us more hosts because they've been wanting to work with each other. That market sets itself up in a matter of days or weeks. And then you have all of the travelers. And the way we hooked in there is through the Airbnb host. While they list on Airbnb, they actually use a different software to run their business. It's called a property management system. There's a few of them out there, kind of like a ResTech. So we hooked into that, and we can pull guest information and send messages on behalf of the host and really get in front of that guest. So I think we have the potential to be that distribution channel for these local businesses. I would say, even for a Viator or a Klook or a Get Your Guide that needs a new distribution channel, that wants to get out from underpaying Google ads and a 1% conversion, like, we've been seeing it in our best customers right now. Our marketplaces average a 10% conversion without spending any money on cost to acquire. So I think, you know, the opportunity is there. You just have to figure out how to get it.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the challenges with short-term rentals has been exactly that, like the fact that these property managers are all just they're everywhere, they're all segregated. And, you know, how do you pull all of that together so that you only have to tap into one or two, you know, distribution channels and you'll get somewhere, right? So I think that's the trick. And I haven't really, obviously Expedia has Verbo, so that is clearly, you know, one of the ways that you tap into a, you know, short-term rental. But when you think about it, there's not much of that out there. Booking has some of that. But again, it's kind of sporadic, that supply.
Do you guys understand the Verbo thing when they say book your own place? They spend so much money on this advertising, where it's like you're going to get your own house. And I'm like, well, I get that on Airbnb. Everyone knows that. You just click the button.
No,
the
that's not what they're going after, Christian. They're going after the thing that Brian Chesky is always talking about, loving the fact that you stay in someone else's home.
But there's a checkbox that says whole house, right? That I think everyone knows that, don't they?
One
Sure.
out of maybe 50
Kind of.
times I've used Airbnb, I actually stayed in someone else's home.
Yeah.
I wanted to check it out. Yeah. But
Those campaigns are kind of a tongue in cheek, you know, they're trying to tap into people's fear. I just saw one the other day of the person, you know, like dancing around in their underwear, you know.
That was
You
an
can't do
Expedia
that if
thing.
you're at an,
Yeah.
huh?
That was at the Expedia conference. They played that on
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But
Maddie,
yeah,
you know, you said you have how many units right now that you're working with?
10,000 properties.
10,000. So what couldn't you connect in with like Vacasa that has 40,000 units and all of a sudden change your distribution?
Yes and no. You know, we don't work with all vacation rental / short-term rental properties just because not all of them are great guests. You know, like some travelers are coming to just stay in the property and they don't want to go on experiences. Like we really look for that mesh between the unique property, the traveler that wants to come and do stuff, and the market that has things to do. I don't know if you want to get into the whole Vacasa thing. That's a very interesting
No, it was
story in
just
our industry.
general like growing.
But we do work with some large property managers. Like there's one in the UK that's huge. They're called Host and Stay. I think they're at 12,000 or 1,200 properties right now, but they are in very secondary and tertiary markets. Like their Viator like literally does not exist where their properties are because the operators just don't know about it. And so they've been trying to work with us to like stand up a whole program for the local businesses that they want to drive their tourism to. So we do see that kind of often, but you know, the short-term rental industry, like with these large people, Vacasa being one of them, but there's also a lot of other ones that have great names, are very protective of who they work with. Like you have to have been in the industry for over 5 years. They need to know who you are personally. You have to go fly and meet them in their destination. Like it's another reason why you could see a very large property manager that has like hundreds of units. And if they haven't heard you in the industry, they're not going to work with you.
Yeah.
Just one more thing, Bruce, before you're out. I just think there's a lesson here for our operators, right? That a lot of these operators only had Airbnb, and that was not necessarily all their fault. But Airbnb, if you follow the rules, your operating experience is only for Airbnb guests. You're not allowed to go with other guests. I think most of them did, but you're not supposed to. So the ones that have been following all the rules just had their livelihoods cut out. And some of them I know were 100% Airbnb because they were the long tail offering the baby goat yoga in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere, and there's no other distribution. But I think the point is that every experience operator needs to have diversification of channels, right? And to be 100% linked to one, I think it's great that what Maddie's doing because it diversifies more. So you're not just with Expedia or just with Viator or just with Airbnb. You got to spread that out because even Google now is at risk, right? Even your own website is at risk of never being found again because of recent changes. So nothing's guaranteed in this world anymore. And the more channels you have, that you could hopefully save some of them, the safer you're going to be, I think.
Diversification.
Yeah, diversification. And I also think it's interesting and maybe would be worth doing a show on at some point about the growth and how to grow local experiences. I mean, I know I think about what you're doing. I think about like with locals, and I think there's a definite need for that in the industry for sure. For all kinds of reasons, but I think it's interesting to think about what are the opportunities to expand and to scale, because that's always the big question with that type of stuff is, how big can it get?
Yeah, I wondered why with locals and tours by locals aren't just all over every single experience that's listed right now on Airbnb to
Yeah.
get them on their platform.
Maybe they are.
That would be like the Fair Harbor move when who was it, Christian, that went out of business and
Yeah, Zerv was the last one, and
Verve went out of business, and they worked all weekend on 4th of July to find another 5,000 clients or however many they got that weekend. I mean, why isn't, we should talk to with locals and tours by locals. Why aren't you just hammering that? Why aren't you, Maddie?
Maybe that's my next story idea. So thank you, Bruce.
Yeah, well, I could talk to you there. I mean, Maddie, is that something that makes sense for you, or you really go through the hosts, not the experience creators? So you wouldn't.
Well, no, we do need the experience creators though on the platform. So
I mean, they're all crying right now. They're all like seriously in danger if they did not diversify and built their business around Airbnb experiences. They're raising their hands saying, help. Yeah, you could come in on a white horse and help.
Yeah, we got to go save them.
Maddie put her website URL in the chat, and
oh, because I'm sure they're all watching. Yeah.
Well, and you know what I was going to say? Let's hope that the thousands that did not get that email on Friday are not just sitting back and breathing a sigh of relief and moving on, because next month they may be the ones getting the email. So
yeah.
Sure.
And it still is a question of why. Like, why is Airbnb doing this now, where they are taking highly rated experiences off their platform?
That had bookings too. Like the Airbnb was going to make money from those.
Yeah, like they're saying you have to refund the bookings after 3 weeks. Yeah. Let's wrap it up, and I'll lead with you, Mitra, on a wrap up of, give us go through your crystal ball, and 2 years from now, where will Airbnb's solar system be? We know the middle of the solar system is going to be the profile. I think we'll all agree. So what's surrounding the sun in that solar system?
Yeah. So I think the easy answer to that would be certainly, of course, the short-term rental properties will be there. I think they may start to invest more in the hotel side of things that, they started putting a lot of effort into with that Hotel Tonight acquisition, and it's sort of just been sitting there since then. So I think upping their game in hotels, I think doing something new in experiences, I think all of that will be the short-term development. And then longer term, I think we're just going to see, many more products and services available. I mean, I think they could even tap into not just offering ground transportation and flights and cruises or all that sort of thing, but also the products you might need on a trip. Thinking about some of these questions that they're asking in the profile, I think there could be all sorts of things that go into that. So.
Right. Yeah. A lot of different services that could come out of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what do you think, Maddie?
Oh my. Yeah, I mean, Airbnb's brand is so strong that using the profile as the center, and I could see them just leaning into the full trip. I mean, I don't think they're going to get into flights because that's a bit established and everyone knows how to find a flight. But I would say more leaning into the brand of Airbnb, which is like these hyper local, undiscovered, off the beaten path items. And I think they'll probably revamp experiences because they lost control of quality, basically, and maybe putting some standards in for who can list an experience and who can't, and all that stuff. I could see them taking a turn there, and just leaning into more and more hosts, more travelers, more profiles, and just becoming the norm of, if you're going to travel, it's going to be with Airbnb in some capacity.
Lori?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're definitely going to be a leader in the accommodation space. So I think they'll for sure blow out, the hotel piece of it, bed and breakfast, as well as continue with, what they have now. I also think for sure they're going to develop the whole group thing, but not just for like small family groups, but for corporate groups, things like that, and using AI in a big way to just bring all of these people together, and for sure bringing experiences back in some capacity. I still think they're going to try to keep experiences unique. I don't think they may go into mainstream to some degree, but I think that's probably going to be more unique, but more scalable. So they're going to have some kind of tech that they can adopt and work with. So yeah, I mean, basically the same idea.
Christian, what do you got? 2
Yeah,
years
I'm
we
right
have
in
a
line
solar
with.
system of Airbnb.
I'm right in. Yeah, I'm right in line with all of that. The interesting thing is, Chesky says he's got this plan and he's going to announce it next year. And I'm torn between he has a plan or he needs to buy himself another year because he's got no idea. But if I had to guess, I think it's this local, unique stuff. I think it's the wine tasting event 2 villages over that will cause me to go and rent a house for the weekend. It's the trip I didn't really plan on taking, but I'm happy to take more trips if it's easy and it's seamless. And my Airbnb agent is going to help me do it. So I think that's an interesting gap. It's not the Eiffel Tower. It's the cool stuff. We can all jump in our car and do an Airbnb this weekend if we have a reason to go, or like experiences first. So I think they'll stay in the experiences like that. Not the hosts, but a bit more of the unique group type stuff. But yeah, not the Eiffel Tower stuff.
Christian, you just said something there that made me think event-based. You said wine tasting 2 villages over, and I just thought that's going to be exactly what they do. You're going to open up Airbnb and they're going to say events like, oh, for this one, go here for, what do you want to do this weekend? Wine tasting. Okay, you can stay here, you can go there. So they're going to build it around the cool things to do.
Yeah.
That's what I think now.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think the whole idea of social commerce leading to group trips, so that once, let's go to that wine festival that you're talking about, Lori, and we spread the word socially, and all of a sudden we're a group of 10, 20, 30 people on the Airbnb platform, and we need 3, 4, or 5 houses to do that. Because I think social commerce has been kind of out there as a little bit of a buzzword, but hasn't really happened yet or hit yet, and has a ton of potential.
Is that social commerce, or you just hacked the word to make it fit with?
I don't know. You hit one of your AI engines to tell us whether that's right, but I'm pretty sure it is. Social commerce is buying something and then putting it out on social, and more people buy it. That's my understanding. There's actually a company that's built a business around that. What's their
What's
name?
the one on the super apps in China where I'm wearing like a red dress and I'm here for 30 seconds on TikTok, and then
Oh, that's just live shopping.
it's just called live shot, different thing
Live.
altogether.
Thank you. Fivo. What does Fivo do? Social commerce. Check it out. Something, maybe I taught you something today, Christian. Wouldn't that be a day? So I think that's a lot of it, that maybe they're looking towards that. I feel like experiences, frankly, is kind of a vanity project for Chesky. Like, he doesn't really know exactly what he wants to do, but he knows he wants to do something in experiences, and everything he's tested so far hasn't really worked that well. Now, all the credit in the world to what he has done with Airbnb, but I just think chasing experiences might be, as useful as Booking.com's connected trip, which I have my own opinion on that as well. So I think yes, getting more into lodging, maybe hotel could be part of that solar system. Having this personalized profile is going to create so much opportunity for them because their brand is so trusted. But in the experiences world, I don't see it except for maybe this social commerce idea for group travel.
Well, I mean, what occurred to me is you just gave that example. You open the app and it's able to say, hey, there's a wine tasting. It's going to show you that wine tasting if you've indicated in your profile you like wine.
Right.
But if I've indicated I like, I like puppies, maybe there's a dog show down the street or something, and that's what I'm going to see. And they're not going to be tied necessarily to stays, because a lot of these icons experiences do not have an overnight component to them. They're just an experience.
I think that's could be that part of their strategy of an experience. And then they'll figure out how to monetize that.
Yeah.
Well, let's check back in 2 years.
Mhm.
Or maybe it's a year. So listen, guys, thank you so much, Maddie and Mitra, for joining us. It's a great show, and we'll see where this all goes. And there'll be a lot of people interested to hear from you, Maddie, about how they can still sell their experiences to the vacation rental hosts.
Yeah, absolutely.
So jump on that and let us know how that goes.
Will
All
do.
right. All right, guys. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Being on
Thanks.
Experience This.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks,
Yeah.
everyone.
Bye-bye.